Hello guys and welcome back to Eyes on the Ball. Welcome to my round 22 tips video. So again, last week was another pretty interesting round of footy. Some big upsets and big results for the makeup of finals. There were some pretty one-sided and irrelevant games, but as I said, games like Collingwood, Brisbane, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Bulldogs, GWS all had pretty big impacts on what will shape the final eight. So pretty decent round of tipping. Only tip I got wrong was the first game of the round, Giants v Bulldogs, and did tip the Lions, so that was good. So 8 out of 9, 4 out of 9 Ollie's calls, not too bad either. And yeah, it was a pretty standard round of footy. This round shapes up as another decent round of footy and third last round of the home and away season. So that's come up pretty quick. So, as I said, got 8 out of 9 for the round. Not too bad. First game was a horrible tip. I tipped the Giants, which was a pretty 50-50 game. Bulldogs come out and absolutely blew them out of the water to end up winning by 88 points. So, margin was off by 95. I think that's the worst margin of the year. Then got a good tip, well, a decent tip. Adelaide to beat Hawthorn, you expected. Pretty good game. Melbourne smashed West Coast in what was Simon Goodwin's now last game as coach of Melbourne. Gold Coast easily beat Richmond. Sydney beat Essendon. Wasn't super comfortable, but a win's a win. And then the Lions got beat Collingwood in the game that was billed to be game of the round, but it wasn't an amazing game, but it was a good win from the Lions. Then on the Sunday, Saints got over the line against North. Wasn't a great performance. Geelong beat Port Adelaide pretty comfortably, and then Freo with a comeback win over Carlton to finish the round. Moving on to my tips for the round. So, yeah, round 22, as I said earlier, should be a pretty decent round. First game of the round, Collingwood, Hawthorn, MCG, 7:30pm Thursday. These two did play probably about 10 weeks ago. It wasn't a great game. Collingwood won pretty comfortably, but Collingwood haven't been in form lately, so you never know. Hawks 13-7 last week, lost to Adelaide by 14. It was a great first quarter, but then the Crows, well, it was kind of a game of quarters of momentum. Hawks dominated first and third quarters. Crows dominated second and fourth quarters, and the Crows come out on top in the end, which you'd expect at the Adelaide Oval. Wasn't greatest performance from the Hawks, but wasn't worse. And now this is 13-7 and a bit vulnerable to whether they make finals. Then you got Collingwood 15-5 last week, lost to Brisbane by 27. Wasn't a great performance. They haven't been playing well the last couple of weeks. Lost 3 out of the last 4, and beat Richmond, which isn't saying much. So they've got a tough next 2 weeks against Hawthorn this week and then against Adelaide. So if they can win both of those, they'll be looking for top spot. But if they lose even one, they could be a chance to miss out on top 4. So this game could go either way, but I think Collingwood should be a pretty safe tip here. So I'm going to tip Collingwood in this one by 23 with my Ollie's call that Nick and Josh Dacos combined for 55 plus disposals. Next game, GMHBA Stadium, 7:40pm Friday. We've got Geelong v Essendon. This is not a good Friday night game at all. Geelong, 14-6 last week, beat Port Adelaide by 88. Yeah, pretty comfortable performance. Jeremy Cameron just kicked a lazy 6. And now it's got 3 regular season games against some lesser sides at plus finals to kick 25 goals. So he could be a chance for 100 goals, and this game is one of the games where he's going to have to kick a big bag against a pretty young and inexperienced Bombers defence. And then you've got the Bombers 6-13 last week, lost to Sydney by 14. It was actually a pretty promising performance, only losing to Sydney and Sydney by 14. A lot better than the last couple of weeks, but you'd expect this to be a pretty one-sided game. So I'm going to tip Geelong by 76 with my eyes called Jeremy Cameron has 8 plus scoring shots. Next game, Saturday, 1:20, we've got Richmond St Kilda, 1:20pm MCG. Richmond, 5-15 last week, lost to Gold Coast by 84. It was an absolutely woeful performance from the Tigers, one of their worst all season. Only managed the 2 goals, were goalless to half-time. So you expected the Suns to win comfortably, but not with Richmond playing like that. So yeah, pretty disappointing performance to a team they had beat earlier in the year. And then you got the Saints, 7-13 last week, beat North Melbourne by 9. A win's a win. I think that is definitely a phrase that sums up that game. It was definitely not our best performance, especially that first quarter, but we did get the win, and nice to pick up a couple of late season wins, and you'd think would be a chance to win this one as well. So I'm going to tip us in this one. Rare that I tip us a couple of weeks in a row. I'm going to tip St Kilda by 51 with my Oz call St Kilda leader game. Next game, Gabba 4:15pm Saturday, got Brisbane v Sydney. Brisbane 14-1-5 last week, beat Collingwood by 27. It was a pretty good performance from Brisbane. Some young players really had some breakout games, including Henry Smith and Logan Morris, so they both played pretty well. And it was a good all-round performance from the Lions. Even players that had poor first halves like Bailey and Rayner did lift. And then Sydney 10-10 last week beat Essendon by 14. It was an average performance, but they got the win, and yeah, it doesn't really mean much, but they've had an alright recovery to pretty bad start to the season. But at the Gabba, Brisbane don't lose there very often. They're starting to build some momentum, so I'm going to tip Brisbane by 38 with my Oz call. The margin at half-time is less than 10 points. First Saturday night game, Marvel Stadium, 7:35pm, have got Carlton v Gold Coast. Carlton 7-13 last week, lost to Freo by 27. It was a great first half, and then they just forgot to play in the second half. Let Freo run over the top of them. Would have been a great win to pick up away in Perth, somewhere where it's pretty hard to win against Freo, but they didn't get over the line in the end, and Freo were just too strong. Then you got the Suns 13-6 last week, beat Richmond by 84. Another good performance after smashing the Lions. Richmond were pretty dreadful, but a win's a win. Pretty comfortable win, percentage booster, and if they can win this one, you've got to lock them in for finals, and even be a chance for top four. Still got Essendon, Port Adelaide to play, so I'm going to tip Gold Coast in this one pretty comfortably by 42, with my Ollie's call that Ben King and Ben Long combine for 5+ goals. Then the Saturday night, we've got Freo v Port Adelaide, Adelaide Oval, 8:10pm. Port Adelaide 8-12 last week, lost to Geelong by 88. It was a pretty bad performance. Zach Butters got tagged, which never helps when one of your best players is getting tagged, and Rosie being injured, and Horn Francis still being out. It was just not a good performance. So, yeah, and especially at Geelong, it is pretty hard to play down there. And then you got Freo 14-6 last week, beat Carlton by 27. It was a pretty bad first half, but all their big guns come out blazing in the second half, like your Josh Tracy's, your Andrew Brayshaws, and they're really rolling into finals, and it could be a sneaky chance for top four after looking like they were going to miss finals after about 8 weeks. So I'm going to tip Freo on this one. They beat them earlier in the season. I'm going to tip the Dockers by 26. And my Oz call Luke Jackson has 100+ super coach points. Next game, 1:40pm on Sunday. I've got GWS v North Melbourne at Manuka. GWS 13-7 last week, lost to Western Bulldogs by 88. It was not a good performance at all. It was really a game that they should have won, based on their recent form, and it was a pretty disappointing performance. Not to lose, but to lose by that much as well. So they'll need to win this, as they have got tough match next week, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember who they play, but I'm pretty sure it is a tough match. And then Saints in the last round they should beat, but still, you never know. Yeah, they got Gold Coast at People First, so they have a chance to lose that. So they really need to win this one to lock themselves into finals, and then should beat the Saints in round 24. Then you got North, 4-1-15. Last week lost to St Kilda by 9. It was a very much more encouraging performance than the performance against Geelong the week prior. Players like McKercher, Sheasel, Daniel all played well, which is what you want. And it wasn't too bad of a performance. Unlucky to lose in the end. I'm going to tip the Giants in this one by 50. With my Ollie's call, Tom Green has 25+ disposals. And then the Sunday 3:15 game, got at MCG, got Melbourne Western Bulldogs. Melbourne 7-13 last week, beat West Coast by 83. Didn't watch any of the game, but it was a pretty insignificant game. Probably one of the most boring games of the season at Marvel. Wasn't many people there, about 15,000. And Melbourne won, which is what they need to do. But they have sacked Simon Goodwin, which is an interesting decision after an 80-point win, but obviously it's been the last couple of seasons, and that loss to St Kilda probably just added the cherry on top. So I think it's probably the right decision. He has obviously had a lot of success at the Demons, turn them into a pretty good club and always competing for finals, won a premiership, but I think now his time's probably come to an end and it's good to move on. And then you got the Bulldogs 12-8 last week, beat GWS by 88. They're the kings of the massive wins, and you'd think there should be another one. It was a great performance, especially from Darcy Norton again. I'm going to tip the Bulldogs by 90 with my other score. Bulldogs kick 70 plus first half points. And then the final game of the round in Perth, West Coast v Adelaide, Optus Stadium, 5:10pm. West Coast 1-19 last week, lost to Melbourne by 83. As I said, did not watch any of the game, but it wasn't a great performance. Always hard to play away, especially Marvel ground they don't play at heaps, and yeah, it wasn't a great performance. I can't see them winning another game this season. And then you got Adelaide 15-5 last week, beat Hawthorn by 14. Top of the ladder, so they're actually flying. They have got Collingwood next week, but they should win this one. And then round 24 they've got North, so if they beat Collingwood they're basically locked in for top of the ladder, so that would be massive for Adelaide. Home qualifying final. I think they are premiership favourites now. I'm going to tip them by a big margin. I'm going to tip Adelaide by 83. With my Ollie's call, Adelaide has 25 more inside 50s than West Coast. So just to recap of my tips, first game of the round should be a pretty decent game. Big crowd at the G. Collingwood are favourites. I'm going to tip them by decent margin, comfortable margin of 25 points. And then the next game, Geelong Essendon on the Friday night. Essendon $21 to win. I'm going to tip Geelong, obviously. Saints, strong favourites to beat Richmond. Lions, strong favourites to beat Sydney. Then the two Saturday night games, Gold Coast and Freo should get up. Now on the Sunday, three pretty simple games again. Got Giants v North. I don't know why it's showing the local time for Adelaide West Coast. I'm tipping Adelaide. And then Bulldogs to round it up. So those are my tips for round 22. Thanks for watching. I was on the ball. I hope you enjoyed another tips video. And as I've been saying, moving into footy finals, so that should be exciting. And then it'll be cricket season again. So thanks for watching. I was on the ball, and see you next time.